Now when working on your 11,000, it is very important to go inside of the base unit to be able to clean it out and oil it and take any kind of lint that might have gotten inside. Push down on the release arm to open up the Y-arm. When opening up the Y-arm, you have just exposed two screws that are on the X cover, which runs horizontal. Remove the two screws to remove the upper X cover. When removing this cover, it will give you access to see inside of the base partially. Towards the left end of the base, you can see that there is a metal bracket that holds the two shells together. The very rear shell and the inner shell. Remove the screw from the rear shell. Now turn the base around so you can locate the screw by the serial number and remove that screw as well. Now you want to close the Y-arm because we want to turn the base over very gently, and you want to be careful of the arm. You don't want to dig it in or hit it into the table. There are 5 screws on the back that need to be removed to remove those two shells. You actually can remove just the outer shell or the rear shell while the machine is on the base. This will help you run the machine and hear or look inside the base and see how it works. At this point, you could actually just run everything and see everything really nicely as it's running. But for the purpose of the video, we're going to remove both shells. So we have 3 more screws that we need to remove. Remember to be very careful as you're working with the base upside down, not to damage or hurt the Y-arm. Now once you remove the last screw, turn the base in its upright position. You can open up the Y-arm and remove the inner shell. Now you can see everything that operates your X-axis. In order to remove the Y-arm cover, slide the carriage forward. When you slide the carriage forward, you can see that it exposes 2 screws. You are going to remove those 2 screws. Usually I like to keep the screws in there so I don't lose them. Less screws on the table, the better. Towards the end of the Y-arm, there is a little white cap that you can use a small flathead screwdriver to remove. And once you have removed that, that is the 3rd and final screw that needs to be removed in order to remove the Y-arm cover. Once that screw is gone, lift up and remove the Y-arm cover. And gently slide the carriage back to its home position. You want to move the arm in a left and right motion and feel how it moves. Is it smooth or is it tight? You can feel the belt for your X belt to feel the proper amount of tension. If you do not have proper tension, like it is too loose and the arm is wiggling, then you can loosen the X step motor, which holds the belt. When you loosen it, we can see that we have a tremendous amount of play. If you pull back on a step motor, you see that you can adjust the amount of tension to a good amount of play. As you move it, when it's loose, you can hear that it will rub up against the belt. You want to find the proper amount of tension and put the screws back in and test it. You can push down on it and you can actually see the arm wiggling left to right. That is no good. You need to loosen it up again, pull back on the step motor slightly to get a good amount of play or the proper tension, and tighten it back up and try again. And we will test it by moving it left to right. We can see that it moves smoothly and back to the right. If the X belt is broken, you can easily change it. You're going to remove the 2 screws from your X step motor. Once you have removed the 2 screws from there, you can remove the belt from the gear which is on the step motor. Now you have the left side free. If you follow over towards the rear or the right hand side of the machine, there is a little plate with 2 small Phillips head screws. That is the last thing that is holding the belt on. Once you remove those 2 screws, that will remove the holding plate, and you will be able to slip the belt off of the other gear. And you can slide the belt out. You can see the dust film, which is very important that it's within its track. If not, it could make a crumpling sound as well. Now to replace the belt, you want to slide it in underneath the flexible cable and underneath the brackets. You want to slide it over, and maybe you have to use tweezers or something to help you to move the belt all the way to the right hand side. You need to move it to the right hand side and to put it around the gear, which is on the right hand side. That will help to hold it in place. As you put it around that gear, move the arm back and start to move the belt towards the X step motor gear. Once you have it near the X step motor gear, place it on, take your holding plate and put it back on top of the belt. Line it up nicely. And once you have it lined up nicely, take your 2 small Phillips head screws and place them back into position. Now that the second screw is going in, the belt system is held in. Once again, we have to go back and adjust the tension or the slack that is coming from the X step motor holding the belt. Start to place the 2 screws in, but do not fully tighten. Test it, pull back on the step motor a little bit to get the proper amount of tension, and tighten your screws. Feel the belt, too loose, so we want to try again. Loosen the 2 screws, pull back on the X step motor, and once again tighten the screws and able to test. We can see now that when we push down on the belt that the arm does not move left to right, and we can see when we move it, it moves very nicely. Now we're going to be looking at the release arm on the right hand side of the base unit. The release arm opens and closes the Y arm. If the release arm was pushed in by accident or it was jammed in, you can see that it will not open up the Y arm. If that happens, take a look at it and grab a flathead screwdriver and put it in the slot that the release arm travels up and down in. Give it a little pry and you can see that you can push the release arm up and down smoothly again, and it will not block the Y arm. Let's say that the release arm doesn't have enough room to travel down. That means the Y arm could not open. There is a little screw with a nut on the right hand side. Take a screwdriver, and if you were to screw the screw in or to release the screw, you can see that it changes the height of the release arm. only does the screw with the nut on the side work, but you also have two screws that hold the release arm from the front. It might be necessary sometimes to make both adjustments. If you can raise the Y-arm, it still might not be able to push down enough, so you might have to go to the front. Loosen the screws and tighten them back up to see if you can get the proper height. You can see that by lowering it, it does not move down far enough to open up the Y-arm. So we would have to loosen the two screws, raise it up slightly, tighten and test, and we see it lifts up the Y-arm and opens it and closes it as well. Now you always have to take the belt cover and always test the belt cover when it's on the base. Since the release arm fits through a little slot that is on the back of the belt cover, if you raise the release arm too much, it will not be able to raise up high enough because of the little slot that's on the belt cover. Or if it was low, you would not be able to push down the release arm all the way.